right, welcome along, everyone. I can see we've got 6 people watching at the moment, so welcome to those 6 people. If you can just put a little comment in the Facebook chat so that we know who you are and that this is actually going live and it's all working. We're on Facebook and YouTube. This is episode 94 of Racing News Podcast. It's an extremely special episode. I'm looking forward to this a lot. Kyle is currently about 25, 27, 28 kilometers into the Berlin Marathon. We'll get to that throughout this episode. We'll track him right the way through to the finish. We're going to talk a little bit about Summer Goats in there, but most of this is all going to be about Goat Loop and the love of the Goat Loop and the race to 1000. And I've got 2 very special guests with me here, Benny D, Ben Dineen, and Scott George. Thank you so much for joining us. Benny, first of all, you've been on the podcast a few times. Thanks again for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Very excited.
Yep, all good. And Scotty, for those who don't know Scotty, he has made a name for himself as the chase, pretty much the chaser, the assist, whatever you want to call it at the moment. It might be the assist, it might not be. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But Scotty George, thanks so much for joining us this evening on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's jump to well, actually, I'll look in the comments here. I can put a few comments up that people write. There we go. Simon from Run Queensland. Simon, I'd love to know actually, how's the recovery going? Because Simon just did the Surf Coast Century, didn't he? Absolutely smashed it. So congratulations, Simon, for that. Yep, and Brett as well. Yeah. So they will be looking eagerly forward now to Blackall, which is coming up in 3 weeks. 3 weekends, I think. Yeah, pretty much 3 weeks today. It'll be job done, job all over for those boys. So, yeah, looking forward to that one. So, let's have a bit of a look at where we are up to for Kyle in the Berlin Marathon. I've got a couple of splits here. So, his 5K actually caused a couple of heart palpitations. His 5K split didn't come up. So, we had a bit of a worry about how he was actually going. But his 10 kilometer came through in 35:28. He then went through 15 kilometers in 53:15, through 20 kilometers in 1:11:04, and the last split was 1:28:53 for 25 kilometers. In comparison to the Gold Coast, that's about a minute behind where he was at the Gold Coast, but we do know he slowed a little bit on the Gold Coast. So I think maybe it's still saying pretty much bang on 2:30, 2:29:50, 2:30. So I just put a little video up. Yeah, I just put a little video up that Caitlin, his wife, took as he came through 19 kilometers, and he had a really big group with him there. So that's absolutely wonderful. A couple of other athletes we are looking at as well. So Rennie, who trains with us, everyone would know Rennie on the Gold Coast. She currently, they've got her as an expected finish of 2:38, which is a wonderful time. Shara Jones, she's doing, I'm not too sure whether this is her 5th major. I can't remember how many majors she's done. She's done lots of them, I think. 2:54. For Shara at the moment, and my older brother at the moment is absolutely killing it. He's on 2:49 pace. So he said to me in the week when I talked to him, I said, "Are you going to go for sub 250?" He said, "If I'm feeling good, I'm going for it." So
awesome.
Yeah. So we'll keep tracking that. So Adzi Gordon, good evening to you, mate, as well. We hope to see you out on the Goat Loop. Sub 30 athlete, definitely.
Hello, sports fans.
Bumpers all down.
Yeah.
He's just back from Sydney as well. So I think pacing the Sydney Marathon down there as well. So Will Kitchen, Will might get a little mention later on. We talk Summer Goats. Will and his running companion at the moment. Absolutely. They're going to cause some damage this year, I think, on Summer Goats. Race to 1000. There we go. So a like for Ben Dineen, and then also Will Kitchen splitting his bets beautifully there.
Smart man.
The stirring.
Yeah. Well, you pointed it out today, Scotty, didn't you? That he went out and did a double 4.0. Could have done, what was that, 5
Five
Goat Loops? 5 Goat Loops. And I asked a question to him as well. I said, I don't know if anyone's named on Strava the double 4.0, whether that becomes the Manmaker 4.0 or not. I don't know. He might be the first to do it. Anyway, let's jump into this, boys. The Goat Loop. We are getting, first of all, I do have to just simply ask. I've got a mug here. Benny, you've got the same one. On there, it just says, what's your number? So I know some people would have just wanted to know, what is the number? And then they're going to disappear and they're going to get on with their Sunday evening. So,
and we'll tell you at the end of this whole episode.
So can I ask Scotty first? So I think that's the way you do it in sport. You kind of, you ask the person that you believe is the assist or the lower number. So Scotty, what are you out at the moment? Well, actually,
So-
let's go. We say, Benny, can you guess? Can you guess what Scotty is?
I'm getting ready to write it down.
For him,
Well,
what
we talked about it this morning. We ran together on the Goat Loop, funny enough. So I kind of got a bit of insider information. So I suspect that Scotty is around 871.
871. Is that right,
Ooh.
Scotty?
That's what I think.
Close. It was actually
Yep.
so 873 if I check on
Ooh.
the official Strava app. So
873.
yeah.
Okay. 873.
Well, I had-
Benny, what's
yeah.
yours, Benny? What are you at? Let's just get the
I'm
numbers out.
953.
953.
Mm-hmm.
47 to go. Scotty, 127 to go. So that's the number. That's the number that everyone wants here for this particular episode. So some people will probably just check out now and disappear.
Yeah.
That's all good. That's fine. I thought we'd just
Yeah.
put it out there at the start rather than leave people hanging on. So let's just get straight into it, boys. So Benny, we'll go to you first. What is the Goat Loop all about? What's the love of the Goat Loop for you? Just if you can keep it to 2 minutes, that'd be really good. So we could keep this episode moving. 2 minutes on why you love the goat.
It's steeped in tradition and history for me. I'll start back when we were running the Nang early in like 2013, 2014, starting to meet some people like Ben Malby, and I met Kyle doing 25K trail race, and we started running a bit more, and eventually we kind of started running a similar loop to the Goat Loop. It varied a little bit. Some people know this history, but then eventually it solidified as the Goat Loop. Kyle made a segment 2016, and then we all pretty well just started running Goat Loops, and it was the thing we did. Ben Malby would just say, "See us in the morning, 5 a.m. or whatever time it was, and we're doing a Goat Loop." There wasn't anything else, and so that's where it started for me, and it's just kind of grown through the years. And I love the Goat Loop, and I've in all its forms, whether it's multiples or now that it's grown in terms of notoriety and people getting on board. So yeah.
But you have fallen out of love with it at times, haven't you? You've told a few
Correct.
people, you've said,
Yes.
I'm done with it. I'm finished and I'm over.
Yes, you've called me out. I remember at one point I told, I believe, Brad Coring that I was done with it. I was done with the Goat Loop.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly when that was, but it was a short-lived decision, and I got back on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Scotty? Because there are a multitude of places that you can run on the Gold Coast, even in Nerang itself. But what is it about the Goat Loop that's drawn you to it? Because you've achieved some remarkable things in the last couple of years when it comes to ultras and marathons just on that loop. And a few people have sort of said, surely you can't do that just from running the Goat Loop. But it appears you can. So what is it for you that you absolutely love about it?
I think it's a weird one for me. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I kind of like the solitude of it. So yeah, just getting out there and amongst nature, it just, especially for me after work to go there and go for a run, it's just the best thing. It's just, I don't know, something about it.
Yep.
And people might think I'm a bit of a weirdo for it, but yeah, there's something special about it. So, you know what you're going to get for the Goat Loop.
Yeah. Well, your weirdness makes you in good company, I think, for the Goat Loop, Scotty. It's not an individual thing. I think, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but my impression of it always is that there's something there for absolutely everyone. If you look at the loop itself, just under 7 kilometers, 260 meters of vert, you've got some steep hiking, you've got some runnable downhill, you've got some technical sections. Like, regardless of how you want to run and how you want to train and what you want to do, there's something there. You could literally focus on downhill running for a couple of weeks and get it from the Goat Loop, or you could just focus on your hiking, that kind of stuff. What do you think of that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think, you hit the nail on the head. It's like you can do speed, strength, hiking. It's got everything on it, So I think people tend to overcomplicate running a little bit, and you can get running from anything, running on the flat, but the Goat Loop still offers everything.
Yeah. Benny, have you ever focused on one particular part of it and worked that section?
Yeah, yes and no. I remember in the early days, Ben Malby would say, "Oh, the Goat Loop's the perfect training loop," and that's exactly what Scotty's saying. Regardless of what you're trying to do, I feel like it has every element. If you want to focus on tempo, if you want to do on uphills, or bomb the downhills, smash your quads a bit, whatever it is, it's got it all. And obviously, once you start to get multiple loops in there, that adds to that as well. I feel like it's just really an all good round place to train. And I think the proof's in the pudding when you look at Scotty and the achievements that he has done in the last couple of years, just from pretty well running goat loops, whether it's marathon time and doing 12 hours around the track, like incredible achievements. And he legit just trains on the goat loop.
Yeah, that's it solely. Forgive me if I look down occasionally. I'm just updating the tracker here to see. So Kyle's just gone through 30 kilometers in 1:46:37. So he's only 50 seconds behind where he was on the Gold Coast. So he's holding this together. It's just to take us off track onto Berlin a bit here. It's remarkable, isn't it, to think that these guys are over there doing it right now. You know, as we sit here talking about this, and months and months of training is coming down to a massive race, probably the biggest road race there is in the world, certainly for marathon. So I've got no idea what's going on at the front of the field. So I'm gonna have to check that later. But to me, the action is it's from 2:30 onwards for our guys. So back to the goat loop. So
actually,
I'd love to know
before you go back, what was your prediction for Kyle time-wise? We can put that out there.
Yes.
Yeah, I've put every possible bit of positivity out there for 2:29. I just want that badly to happen for him. And his predicted time here, it says 2:29:58 at the moment. So
I said 2:29. Scotty said
2:28. I've been generous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's good for them.
He's even more positive, Scotty.
It's going to be a great finish coming through the Brandenburg Gate with 300 meters to go. That's, you know, and if he's looking down at his watch, knowing that he's got to run, you know, 3:30 pace or something for the last couple of 100 meters, it'll be great. But let's get on to, we won't talk about the history of the goat loop, guys, because what I will do probably in the next week, Benny, you might remember we did a podcast a couple of years back where we talked about the history of the goat loop, how it was created and how it formed. And I think I'll just re-upload that one for everyone in the next week. So if you really want to dig deeper into the goat loop, you can listen to that. Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about introductions. I'm interested, Scotty. We'll go to you first. How did you come by the goat loop? What did anyone take you on it? What was it that actually drove you towards it? And like, were you in Nerang beforehand doing other loops before that?
Yeah, so I think it was 2019, and it was a Goat Loop Classic. It was my first Goat Loop, and I don't know how I found out about it, and it may even been for you, Tom. You said there was going to be like this thing, and I said, okay, I rocked up, and then did my first Goat Loop. Didn't know where it went, and just I think you'd marked it with lime or with corn flour or something. I don't know.
It wasn't lime. Just for the record, it wasn't lime. It was just self-raising flour. That was it.
Or was it? It was some substance, some white powder.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna be killed. No, it was flour. Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah. No, that was it. Yes, that was my first loop, and then ever since then.
Do you remember what time you ran? It was 31 something, wasn't it? It was pretty quick. It was almost your fastest.
I did, I wrote it down. So it was 31:42.
Yeah. And
that was my fastest time up until April this year. Yeah. Believe it or not. So first time was the fastest.
Yeah, the Goat Loop Classic was a little thing. This predates the podcast, I think, even that Kyle and I were just talking about getting people out there. And introducing them to the Goat Loop. And I said, let's just put something up on Facebook, you know, and 10 or 15 people will turn up and things like that. So, that was awesome. For those listening at home or on Facebook, I'd love to know from you guys, if you want to put it into the comment section, about who actually brought you onto the Goat Loop. For those people who are listening, was it someone in particular? Did you just stumble on it by chance? So if you can remember, put it in the comments for it and we'll chuck it up. Benny, what about you? Yours will go back, I'm going to guess here, 2015? 16? That's far
first
back,
one?
Was
first actual Goat Loop was 2015. The 1st of April 2015. I went back and found it.
With Kyle, wasn't it?
With Kyle. And because before that we did different variations. It was very close. Like it looked like the Goat Loop, but we'd run the single trail at the start. And then eventually we ran that fire trail next to the houses. And that was it. Yeah, first one was with Kyle.
Well, here we go. A little comment here. So Laura, she went out with Will Kitchen. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Laura later on because she's causing some damage in the Summer Goats series. Here's Ben Kelly. I was introduced to the Goat Loop by Mel Haley. So
Mel.
They are loyal members of the Goat Loop fraternity. club, aren't they?
Yeah.
The guys from Ben and sort of Mel's group there and Jody's group.
Yeah.
So yeah, so do you actually? You said, Benny, it was Ben Malby who actually took you out the very first time and did a loop with it.
Again, we had different versions of. I think he called it the Highline Loop or something originally that he and Kyle would run, and it a lot of times we would come back down 3 hills.
Yeah.
Instead of going around, or we'd come back through the single trail. So it wasn't solidified as the goat loop early on.
Yeah.
And then obviously after a while, that was it. Once we decided that was the goat loop, it got a segment and then never changed.
Because I know on that one you're talking about on the 1st of April 2015, the year I think you said, you actually titled it NSF. Is that right?
Nerang
NSF
State
loop?
Yeah, I used to call them NSF, like Nerang State Forest
in
the early days. So yeah, that was my title for them.
We did say in that podcast where we did the history of the goat loop, we did say if you look at the screenshots of your Strava and how the goat loop actually morphed and changed, it almost looks like the borders of Eastern Europe as they changed through the late 20th century.
Yeah,
it cuts inside, doesn't it? Or then it cuts out, and then sometimes you just like I can see it kind of forming little bit by little bit. So I am going to put that podcast up. So. Here we go. Ray Cantrell. Found it by accident when I first got onto the trails. I was looking for places to run that I wouldn't get lost on.
No way.
Love
That's
it.
awesome.
Reece Drummond here, Pete Dalby and Vince Stefanak took me around my first goat loop. Ben Malby was the legend at the time. And there was a photo of him in a tree on the goat climb. Of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Still not there anymore, is it? Steve Ruddock. There we go. Met Ben last week on the goat. Great people.
Yes.
There we go.
Met him in the car park, of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was introduced to the goat loop when training for my first Kokoda challenge. Scotty, you've done Kokoda recently with your family.
Yes.
The goat looping in there, I would imagine, for those. Goat Mania was shown the loop by you two, Ben and Tom and Brad Ed as well, if I remember correctly, from Joshy. Mel Haley just went and did it, I guess. Yeah.
She's done it a lot of times too.
First female to reach 100 loops was Mel Haley, wasn't she? So, Sally, I don't remember my first goat at all.
Sorry.
And Coxie, first one with Sam Weir and Ando. There you go. A couple of names from the past. So,
this is good.
do you guys have access to roughly your first couple of times that you did? Do you know roughly what you maybe, let's say, the first 2 or 3 loops that you did on the goat loop? I mean, were they sub 40s? Were they low 30s? Were they, walks? What sort of pace do you remember doing the very first couple of loops?
You want to go first, Scotty?
Yeah, so I found it really hard because I didn't really title them through Strava, so I went scrolling through, but I think most of them are around sort of 40 minutes, 38 minutes and stuff for those first few.
Yeah.
And it sort of spread out over, quite a long period, the first 10.
Yep. Betty, what about you?
I'm just trying to find a couple here. Go back.
Just while you're doing that, Mel Haley's just added a bit more to hers here. This now makes sense. Did the memorial run for Ian Cornelius and didn't know it was the goat loop back then. So, yeah, absolutely. Benny?
Like kind of 42s would have been roughly the earlier times. Again, a lot of those were done with Malby and Kyle in the early days. Yeah. Was pretty standard.
We just on that. That's an interesting time you say there, because we have had a few rules in the past, haven't we? That you nothing over 40. That's changed to you can't walk here, or you have to run this part, or you can't do anything but just hike the goat climb, and that seems to have disappeared recently. Thank goodness.
Yes.
Here's just a little update. Will Kitchen is following Berlin. Kipchoge 2:02.41 for the win.
Wow,
so
awesome.
He will have his eyes set firmly on Paris next year for the marathon. Only 3 times. No one's won the marathon 3 times in a row.
Wow.
What do you reckon? Here we go. What do you reckon he'd run for the goat? Matt House's time.
I reckon 21 minutes.
I was going to say, you could end your amateur career here with him time. Just 20 seconds slower than Matt Hauser, I think. I think he'd struggle on the climb. I don't know what he'd run. What do you reckon? Scotty say 21? Benny?
21 minutes.
Put one
Probably
out.
probably 25. Yeah.
All right, let's break this up. We're just going to have a little bit of a chat about summer goats because that is thickly in the action at the moment. 24th of September. So I was doing a little bit of calendar calculating. They don't have long, people, for summer goats. You've pretty much only got Saturday, because Sunday I think is the 31st. So don't forget 30 days in September. So Saturday only. So
Ooh.
I'm just going to see here.
If
whether-
Cherie Barnes is watching or listening, she needs to remember because she was talking Sunday.
Okay. So
Yes.
let's just see whether I can share my screen here. Can you guys see that? This is the male leaderboard. So this is how it stands at the moment for September. This month, let's just filter it just for men at the moment. So Brad Aird, Jeremy Patch, Will Kitchen, Mick Easdale, Declan King-Smith. I think that could shift a little bit. That was the one I looked at and thought, okay, it's very, very fast goater. So I think he's just had a bit of a look at it. And I think this is the one that
sniff.
Yeah, Kyle, I think, has mentioned Declan, and it looks like maybe he's gone out with Pierce and Phil, or maybe not. Oh, definitely Pierce. There you go, 206.48 and 206.50. So maybe Declan will have a crack at that on Saturday. Maybe Brad Aird will be guarding the gates of Nerang, telling people it's close. Phil Brown 7, Joey McGrath 8th, Jesse Kelly 9th, Jack Day 10th. No points for Brad Glover at the moment in that spot. But what's you making of that top 10? Any standout performances, boys, that you can see there? Any ones of particular note?
Scotty?
Oh, look, I think Jeremy's run last week or the week before was exceptional. And for Brad to go and beat that, I talked to Brad yesterday. He said he had to work, real hard, like he had race effort. So it was an awesome thing to see. And then I'm just curious about Declan because I saw Declan this morning, and he went out for a bit of a recon with the boys, and so I'm sure sometime this week he might lay down a quick one. Well, I'm hoping he does.
I think Jeremy's run, that's the one I think is the standout there. We've known Jeremy for quite a number of years, and we know how good he is at downhill running. And so that's a wonderful, wonderful time. And then, as you said, for Brad to go out and I think Brad last year ran 151 for the loop for the win in that particular month. So he's gone out and smashed his own best by 4 minutes there. So that's as it stands at the moment. See the name right down the bottom there. T-Loss, unfortunately, is in 14th. So he'll be there every round, I imagine. Benny, anything from you for the
Will's time? Is that the run that he did with Laura?
Well, let's have a look. Let me just filter this here. Yes. There you go. So there's a big gap, isn't there? I mean, is there enough? That's a monster gap, isn't it? We're talking 15 minutes there. So maybe not. We'll see. But as we said over here on the female page, I didn't see that one today. Natalie Goodwin. I did not see that earlier in the day. So there we go. 2 hours flat and 16. Laura Lovett. So this is Will's partner. So Will's been taking Laura around, showing her a couple of the loops and the goat loops and things like that, and the bigger one. And Laura's come in there in 2:02.43, ahead of Hayley in 2:04, and ahead of Danny and Dana in 2:14. So Dana won it last year, Hayley won it the year before. So the fact that Laura's in front of those two, I think the female summer goats, I think is going to be extraordinarily close because you look at that particular list there, and bearing in mind Cherie got lost yesterday. Yeah. And so I think her time really is 2:13. So it puts her between Danny and Dana there. So, for the top 5 or 6 there, it's anyone's really. Yeah. So that's outstanding. That's going to be really close. Good to see what Laura's capable of as those distances get shorter and shorter and the pace gets more and more intense. So that's where we're up to on Summer Goats. The bonus point went to, let me get this right. I think Hayley had the bonus point. Yeah, I did some screenshots on it. So I think Hayley had the time then. And of course, Jeremy got the bonus point there, which would give him the same amount of points as Brad after the month. So let me just share that screen there. We should be back to normal. Yeah. Here we go. Henry is watching at the moment. So he's predicting Kyle 229, Rinny 239, Shara 257. Let's just have a look at where Kyle is. 205.10 at 35 kilometers. So he's only 40 seconds now behind where he was at the Gold Coast. So he's finishing strong. Ooh. Yeah, so he's on the way. We'll get one more split at 40 kilometers. And then we'll see there how he's going. Jeremy Patch, well done, Brad. Aird smashed the downhill. It is pretty awesome, actually. I did this yesterday. Was you can compare 2 times. And so I went in and compared Brad and Jeremy's time. And normally in these kind of trail races, one person goes out in front, don't they? And they usually hang on to it. Not so in this one. If you put Brad and Jeremy's time in, they crisscross. I think the lead changes 4 times. You know, it's
Wow.
remarkable how close it actually is. And I think Jeremy had the lead as they came to the top of the goat climb. So with 4 kilometers to go. And as we said, we know how good a downhill runner Jeremy is. And so, you know, it was interesting that Brad was able to put a bit of time there. But Jeremy, there's still a Saturday to go.
It's true.
Absolutely. All right, let's keep going with the goat loop. So your PBs, boys. What do you remember about the PBs that you've done? Scotty, let's go to you first. You said your goat loop classic was your PB for a long time, and you broke that this year. What do you remember about the run in April? So what is it? 31:40 something?
31:40. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it was 31:44. Now it's 31:42. So a big 2 seconds. But it was a weird one. It was the week of Dead Cow Gully, and for some reason I decided it'd be a good idea to go and do a really hard goat loop, just impromptu. And anyway, broke my record by 2 seconds. But I don't really remember much about it. I didn't warm up for it properly, and just went hard.
What is it going to take for the sub 30? Because we know you're capable of it. You're absolutely capable of it. Where do you think your time has to be made up if you're coaching yourself?
It's 100% in that climb. I don't know. I'm a bit lazy. I always hike a little bit of it, and I've got to run most of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely what I'll make it up.
Are you talking the goat climb? Because I think everyone hikes that. I think even the better ones hiking that.
I even like just after the beehives, usually just hike that little steep incline, and then the little pinch, and then I run again. So I think I've just got to run hard till I hit the goat climb just past the log.
There's some time there. There is some time.
Yeah.
You are talking to the guy here he's the slowest man to get to the top of the goat climb and still come home sub 30. It's quite an honor. It's up there, I think. It's up there with Sean Lyons.
That's right. You were going to say that.
Slowest winning 100 times. So I think I can't remember what you got to the top in, but it's remarkable, Benny, how fast you came home on your particular day. Of course, you were number 3. You were number 3, the third person to go sub 30. Of course, Kerry was the first, Kyle was the second, and you were the third. What do you remember about your sub 30 day?
I remember it wasn't intentional. I wasn't going to do it. I just was a little bit ticked off from work. I was just wanting to go blow off some steam, and I just ran, and I thought I'm going to tempo the uphill, and I did. And then I remember hitting the top of the goat climb, and I looked at my watch, and I went, it's on if I go. So I just went hard. And then I remember catching a mountain bike going up the quarry climb and just like using that as kind of like, I'm going to stay with them. And then he got ahead, and then I caught him again. And then once I hit last hill to gate, it was just everything all out. Yep. And I remember I didn't know I got it till I uploaded it. I was 100% sure. So, and I immediately screenshot it and sent it to Ben Malby.
Yeah. Was the sub 30 even a thing when you did it, or was it just like, because there's only 2 people who'd done it? So Ben Malby, of course, was 30:01, wasn't he? So
not really.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I've gone sub 30, I'm in the club. I was just stoked that I beat Ben's time, because for such a long time we thought it was stout that no one could beat it.
Yeah.
And he was very proud of it. And then for me to actually go under it, I was pretty pumped. So that was my recollection of the day.
Just while we're talking here, had the same message through from a couple of different people. 2:11:52, a new female marathon
world record.
World record, which is just outstanding. You can see lots of people are watching it. So thanks for keeping us updated as we chat through this. So you guys have done really well then to do the goat loop as fast as you did without actually vomiting. I've said it a few times on this. I actually had a small vomit at the top of the goat climb. And I don't know if you remember, Benny, but the day that I went under, I was the number 4 after you, and you were sitting at the gate just waiting, because I think I said to you, I'm going to give this a red hot shot today. And as I came flying around the corner, who should be sitting there but Ben Deneen, just monitoring, making sure everything is above board and on. All right. Benny, I just want to play a quick little video for you here, because I've noticed recently that you don't actually enter the goat loop as you used to. So I'm hoping this is going to work. I found a video from many years ago. Funny you should mention Kyle, actually, when he's running. It's you and Kyle actually going into the goat loop. But have a look at how you enter the goat loop here.
Oh, okay.
Look at that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's just nonchalant, isn't it? Let's see it again. Let's have a look at the
good.
replay.
I like it.
It says there's no concern for, if I do an ankle or roll anything here, I might be out for a couple of weeks. Now it's like, I think you actually get lifted over by the person who you're running it with has to carry you across. Look at it.
The spring in the
little skip.
Yeah.
Wow.
A few other differences in appearance and things like that as well. But
that's good.
Let's talk about the shoeies. I do have a video here. This one is a minute 20 long. I just want to play this one. I found a couple of shoeies, and we'll talk about the rise of the shoey here. So I'm just going to play this video for everyone at home as well.
Okay, what's happening? What's going on?
All right, another 200 goat loops. Scotty,
right.
George. Now, yesterday, Glover had the mountain
No goat.
but we've gone up a level quite clearly.
That's all I had in the fridge. So time check, 7:31 in the morning.
Yeah,
It's a gym
time to
chewy.
celebrate. Here we go.
Oh, it's frothy.
Oh! Another first here
All right.
at Nerang. Morning. Feels a bit weird doing a shoey by yourself in the Nerang car park, but a milestone is a milestone. 800 goat loops. This one's shout out to Scotty George for dropping off this beer after he did a goat loop before the sun came up, before he headed off to do Kokoda training with the kids. Here's to you, Scotty. Oh, these. Wait, no leak. Oh, a little bit. Here we go. Here's to the goat loop as well.
So, you did. So that was, what number was that, Benny? Yours, your solo?
That was 800.
Is it 800?
800,
Is that the only time that a shoey's been done by yourself? Someone's been on their own doing a solo shoey. And I think I said to you at the time, can you imagine driving down Hope Street at Nerang and just seeing this guy just standing there talking to his car, just talking to the car,
Standard day in the rain.
toasting.
Yep.
And of course, Scotty, yours is a standout one. This is kind of when the shoeys were just in their inception, weren't they? They were just starting out. And the fact that, as I said, Glover did one the day before and then you did one, but you just went into the car and just nonchalantly pulled out a Jim Beam at like 7, whatever it was in the morning. And then it's just taken its own life from there. What are some classic shoeys that you remember from other people who've hit the 100 milestones? Mel Haley's was a good one. That was a different one, wasn't it? The champagne glass out of the shoe. Yeah. Well, from your you go first, Scotty. Any that stand out for you?
Oh, the standard has to be Telos Sean with the beetroot juice out of the holy shoe. And like, I actually wasn't there for the shoey, but I came back to the car park and looked like someone had been stabbed.
It was a crime scene in Nerang for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the highlight.
Benny, is that the same for you?
Oh, yeah. Nothing can beat that. I don't think ever. Just his wit and this such a unique way of doing it. Only Telos. And he wasn't even sure that he'd reached the number too, if you remember.
That's right.
When we questioned him, he was like, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And then just everywhere all over him too.
Your words were, "There's been a massacre in Nerang," as he's trying to take it. There's been a massacre in Nerang. So there's been some very good ones, and it's a tradition that is growing with each particular 100 milestone. I don't know what on earth happens for the 1,000, and we are getting to this in a moment. It's coming up in a second. So keep the shoeys coming, people at home. Every time you get to 100, there's got to be a shoey of some sort. Any liquid. I think we've sort of branched out a bit now. People are having different things, so no necessity that it has to be beer. I think you can take whatever you want. Before we get to the 1,000, just got to be out of a shoe. Yeah, exactly. Before we get to the 1,000, boys, what is the goat loop multiple efforts? I mean, Benny, you were pretty much the lone wolf who was doing these. Not many people were doing multiples when you were. And if I've got your personal best times down here, your best goat loop time is 2018. Your best bandmaker is 2019. The Widowmaker is the same run, and that actually got you the crown in 2019. And then on the 11th of May in 2019, you did Lazarus, Impossible, and Nirvana as your PB. So we're going back 4 years now
Yeah.
of multiples. I know lots of people are doing them now, but what is it that made you start doing the multiple loops?
Well, again, this is probably something we've covered in the previous podcast, but Ben Malby was the one that always talked about doing a man maker, which when I first started doing goat loops, was like, whoa, 2 loops, that's hectic. Yep. And then he said, 3 would be, the widow maker. And I said, well, what's 4? And he says, I haven't named it yet. So I was the one that started naming them as I did them from the 3rd goat loop. Yeah. And I have this thing. I want to be the first to do it. I want to be the first to do 4 and 5 and 6. And obviously it got to the point where everyone started to get on board and they took it further, which is awesome. But for a while there, it was just my thing. And it was a good, like we talk about the same thing. It's good training ground. So I was training for 100 Ks or 100 miles or whatever. And a long run would just be going out and stocking the car and doing 7 or 8 loops, coming back to the car every time and going back out. It just made sense. So that was why. And it was measurable as well. I could, go, well, where am I at currently? And can I sustain 40-minute goat loops or 41-minute goat loops and keep running them? And I think a few of those were like that, where I said to myself, if I get to loop 6 or 7 and I'm walking heaps, and that's the last one. So it was like, get 7 or 8 done, and then, all right, but you've done them well, and then stop.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the beauty of it, isn't it? The fact that if you say I'm going to go out and do a 35-kilometer run and you do the big loop and then you do, maybe 4.0 or 3.0, then you're out there for a long time without ever coming back, and you can't sort of reassess how you're feeling. But with the goat loop, if you say, I want to do 4 loops, but you don't feel it, you pull the pin at 2 for whatever reason, or maybe you do 5. Like, it's only a little bit more, isn't it? Like, it's only one more loop, to add an extra... One more loop. It's only one more loop.
Well, it's like the other week, I genuinely did one more because I didn't feel like doing it. I went, well, you don't feel like doing it, but you're going to go do one more today.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how it is.
Scotty, yours is a bit more eclectic than Benny. So goat loop, as you said, 3rd of April 2023. That's your fastest. Manmaker was the 29th of May in 2020. Widowmaker and the Lazarus were the same day, the 2nd of May in 2020. You actually got the crown, the Widowmaker and the Lazarus that particular day. Now, do you remember who you were fighting with? Who was your battle with? Back and forth.
There was the killer, Luke Kilborn.
Yep.
So I remember the day I did, was it the Lazarus? He came up the very next day and beat my crown.
So that's what I've got here. So it's like on the 2nd of May, you take the Widowmaker and the Lazarus. And then on the 3rd of May, Luke comes out and takes the Manmaker, the Widowmaker, and the Lazarus in the same run. And we haven't seen him since, I think is what we're saying. Your impossible then is the 24th of July, 2022, which was a remarkable day because, of course, that was the very first time anyone went sub 4 hours for the Nirvana, 3:51:47. That was, you did that with Brad, didn't you? That particular day.
Did that with Brad. Yep. So,
again, but you've gone under 4 hours since then, haven't you? For Nirvana, I think you've done it a couple of times.
Actually, no. I went under 4 hours yesterday. I think it was only the second time. Yeah.
So from either of you, what happens with multiples once you get past 6? That's the furthest I've gone. What happens when you get to 7, 8, 9, 10? Of course, Scotty, you've gone to 23. Benny, you've gone to 10. Is that right?
Yeah, 10.
What is there a change? Is there a state of mind that happens? What can you give us any insight into what happens when multiples occur?
I'll go first because Scotty's done a lot more than me. I got to 10 and you were there, and like physically I was wrecked. But that was the goal, to get to 10. But then I had set my sights on 11, 12, and 13. I was already had the names picked. I was just going to, go do it. And then someone went out, Justin, and beat me to it. So, because he heard about it. So, I definitely had plans of going further and doing more because I wanted to, I think, honestly, because I wanted to name them. That was my reason. And then that was kind of taken. So I let everyone else go for it after that. Brad Ed went out and did 16, and then Scotty and Peter McKesker have done 23. And someone's yet to do 100 miles on the goat loop.
Yeah.
So there's still that 24th loop.
So that 24 loops. So,
Scotty, what about you, Scotty? I mean, you haven't had the chance to name any of them because obviously Peter McKesker did them all prior to that. But what happens then? Enlighten us from between Ben's 10 and your 23. What on earth happens to mind, body, and spirit?
Oh, so obviously that day was a special day because obviously we're raising some funds for a friend of ours who had cancer. But that day, I don't know, it was tough. It was probably one of the toughest days I've ever had running. It was almost a blur. Like I just remember it was just like a death march from about probably, I reckon, 10 loops.
Yeah.
And luckily I had like people like yourself, Ben and Brad out there to help me. But it wasn't cool.
It wasn't pretty, was it?
You had the poles out there at one stage, didn't you? I've got a great photo of you at the top of, I think it's Castle Hill climb. You're just pretty much leaning on your poles. I think it was loop 22, maybe it was even loop 23, and you just come to a grounding halt. But remarkable achievement to get to 23 laps. And of course, as we said, 24th is still to be named, isn't it?
Yep.
So it'll be done. It'll definitely be done soon.
Of course it will. Yeah.
So let's I just got a couple of splits here. Kyle he's gone through 40K. He's on estimated time of 2:32. Rinny's on an estimated time of 2:40. Shara's bang on 3 hours and 1 second. And my brother's hanging on to 2:51 at the moment. So they're getting close. They're getting very, very close to the finish now. Well, I mean, they've been running for 2 hours 28 minutes now. So Kyle he'll be inside of the Brandenburg Gate, that special moment that I think everyone talks about when the Berlin Marathon, to run through that with 300 meters to go will be incredible. So, boys, let's talk about the 1,000. All I've got down here in my notes is the road to 1,000 highs and lows. I mean, Benny, you started this journey a long, long time ago. Scotty, not so long ago. I mean, I've got a couple of milestones here. Scotty, on the 21st of January this year, you hit 500 loops, and you're drawing close to 1,000 before the end of this year, which is just insane, isn't it? I mean, 7th of January 2021 was your 100th loop. 27th of August last year, it was 400 loops. Like, you did 400 loops in, I think we actually figured it out, it was a day less than a year. So your graph is remarkable. Benny, yours, Benny, here you said your first one was in 2015. Your 300th loop was when the 2000th goat loop was done, and that was on the 2nd of May 2020.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've gone 700 loops this year in March, 800 in June, 900 in September, and you're drawing close to 1,000. So take us through it, boys. I don't have many questions for this. I just want you to talk us through the race to 1,000, what you guys have been thinking about for the last 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months, maybe, just take us through your thought process.
Oh, you go first, Ben.
Well, June last year, I hit the 500, and I remember we had a discussion about, going to 1,000, and it almost seemed like a distant kind of thought. And then it kind of became a reality when I think Scotty started putting in those numbers that you're talking about and those milestones that this was going to happen. And it wasn't until probably, I'm going to say 5-6 months ago, where I suddenly realized that if I don't really make this a concerted effort, that he will catch me. And to be honest with you, and Scotty knows this because obviously we've run it so many times together, we do talk it through. It became a real mental challenge. It's like doing an ultra over months and months and months, where every day I'm crunching numbers and I'm getting up and making sure I get my numbers in. And then with some people know I was going away and working at events, so I'll be away for 2 or 3 days. And while I was gone, Scotty would be punching out huge numbers, 5 on a Saturday, 5 on a Sunday, come back and do a supplementary 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So I'm away at an event, trying not to check Strava, but then seeing what he's doing, going, I can't even get a single loop in. So it was honestly playing with my head. And that's been probably the last couple of months, probably not the last 5 or 6 weeks, but probably the last couple months before that was the hardest, where I felt like Scotty was gaining so quickly that it was inevitable, but I had to keep pushing and keep trying.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Scotty. Do you remember actually making a concerted decision to say, I'm going to get this, I'm going to catch Ben? Like, was that was that actually a thought in your head that, because you were obviously doing them after work, you were regularly clicking the numbers, but then surely at one stage you must have thought, I can catch him. Like, was it a plan?
I don't know if it was a plan, but it was just like, it was more of a personal goal to see what I could do. And then it just sort of evolved from there. It's like, yeah, over the last few months and stuff, like, you know, watching Benny and stuff like Punch Out, what he's been doing during the week. It's like, you know, I'd be sitting there going, okay, what do I have to do to sort of, you know, draw level with him or get in front of him? It was just, really, it does play with your mind and stuff about how you got to catch up.
Well, I must admit, Kyle and I have talked about this, and we crunched numbers a while ago. And I remember 3, 4, 5 months ago, we said, there's no way Scotty can catch him. Like, it's a ridiculous. It's not a chance that it's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, you drew the number really close over the space of a couple of months. And I remember Kyle and I then saying, holy hell, like he could seriously get him here or get very, very close. And then it just kept getting closer and closer. And Benny, now I come back to my question to you. I said to you, Benny, maybe 2 months ago, I said, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, the level of fitness that you were at 2 months ago, it wasn't like you could simply just jack the number to 140 in the space of a week, you know, because that's how injuries occur. You were punching out 50-kilometer weeks, weren't you? 40-kilometer, 50-kilometer weeks. And all of a sudden, I remember us talking, saying, it's all you can do. You can't go to 100 yet. You've got to go to 60. Then you've got to go to 70. Then you've got to go 80, you know. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll get injured. And that was a concern, wasn't it? That as much as you wanted to do it.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Probably
doesn't matter
how.
I said it doesn't matter how strong my head is, or want to get out and spend a whole weekend on the loop. Just body's not up to that standard. And I said Scotty does have that in him, and he was at that level that he could go out, and if he wanted to, he could spend a whole weekend on the loop. And I knew that, so it's like he had the upper hand for a few months there. And I just, again, I had to keep going. I just got to do everything that I can, and then eventually go, all right, now I need to start building. And I think the time that happened really was, I remember a run that we were doing together, and Trav Island was there. And I probably said it not in a cocky way, but I said, Trav asked me, what's the plan about beating Scotty to 1,000? And I just said, I'm going to stay 100 ahead of him the whole way. And Scott was there, and I was 100 ahead. I was actually 110 ahead at the time. And I said, I've got a buffer on the buffer. And I remember Scotty probably going, in my head thinking Scotty's going, well, you just watch me, pal. And he just started to beat that number down. It went from 110 to 100 to 90 and to probably 80. And that's when I went, okay, I need to actually start to ramp this up, but I got to do it smart, and I got to build. And so that's what I've done in the last 6-7 weeks. I've just continued to build every week, and try to do it smart so I don't get injured, because it's been a proper training block. It's probably one of the best training blocks I've ever done for any race ever. And I'm not even in a race. We're training for a race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've gone from doing 50, 60, 70K weeks to, you must have been 130, 140 this week.
I had 143 this week. The previous week was 137, 120-ish. Yeah, so it's gradually from like 100 up to 140. But see, Scotty was doing 140 and 130K weeks. And I was just going, I can't do that. I just can't physically do it. So I needed to train, I needed to build. So that's what I had to do.
I think I knew in the back of my mind, though. It's like, I knew that all Benny had to do, like, people asked me, can you catch him? I said, well, look, all he needs to do is counterattack. So if I do too, he'll do too and stuff. And he can just maintain that gap, because it's, what are we at? I think 80 behind now. It's, almost mathematically impossible to catch him.
Don't say it, Scotty. Don't say that yet. I've got a question. Benny, we talked about this last week, didn't we, on a loop that we did? And I said, anyone who's done ultras knows you just, if you're chasing someone, whether it be a friend or whether you're chasing for a podium, you just got to keep moving, because you don't know what's going to happen in front. There's no guarantees that the last 10%, you're down to the last 5%, Benny, is going to go smoothly. And I think that's an ultra mindset, isn't it? There's no guarantee that person's getting out of the checkpoint chair.
No, and I just got to do everything that I can every day. And I think I remember a couple of months ago you saying to me, you said, what you have to do is make sure that you stay at least 30 in front right near the end, just so that Scotty couldn't go out on a weekend and just do it. No, like legit, because
I know
he is capable of it. So you can't snooze, or you literally will lose with Scotty, because he can just do it. He's capable of it mentally, physically, and he has the want. So
let's just quickly pause. So Kyle's come in there, 2:32.50 for Berlin Marathon. So outstanding run.
Nice.
Working hard right till the end. So congratulations, mate. We're going to get a full debrief in maybe not the next podcast, but the one after that. So probably close to a month's time before we sit down and chat with Kyle. But rest up, mate, and go and enjoy the the beauty of Chamonix now. I think he's going to Chamonix for a week or so, just to trail runner. He did say once he's done this marathon, he might be a trail runner. Now, I've got
Yep.
question here from Shelley, who's somewhere on the west coast. I think she's traveling around Australia. I think. Can you please enlighten me and tell me why the goat loop? What am I missing here? So let's just say this as anyone who's never done the goat loop. What are they missing? Is it just a personal goal? Is there something special? I mean, we did chat a little bit about this at the start, but is there anything in particular in response to that?
Scotty?
Well, the goat loop. Like I said at the start, there's something about it, the solitude of the loop. It's just been great out there in nature. Like it's not the prettiest of loops, but there are certain aspects that are pretty. Yeah.
Benny?
I think consistency for me, I really thrive off consistency, and just doing the same loop every day, I have absolutely no problem with it. In fact, I prefer it. I love it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. So that's probably the main reason. And there's all the other reasons, of course, that because it has history and people have all, jumped on board and got behind the goat loop, and it's a thing. But even if it wasn't, we'd still be running it, I'm sure.
Yeah. We probably just wouldn't be up at 12,800. I think I looked at the number, which is just remarkable. But I think you're right, Benny. I think it comes down to that fact that, in so many parts of our life, we're searching for structure. We do well as people when we have structure. And for those people who head out, regardless of where you run, whether it's in Coomera or down at Burleigh or at Main Beach or Nerang, if you know that it's Monday and I'm goat looping, or it's Wednesday and I'm goat looping, Wednesday afternoon, as we've done quite a bit, Benny, it's just becomes part of your week, and it's a bit it's an anchor point for your week to go, okay, I know where I am. Exactly.
It's a bit like Anchorman too. It's the pancake breakfast. We do it every month. Right? It's the go loop. We do it every day. It's what we do.
Yeah. Mel Hattie says I can't get lost, which is very much the case when you get into the bigger loops from there. So let's keep going with the 1,000. So where are we up to now? And I did say last week to you, Benny, Scotty, how do you feel about this? Like, you do most of your loops in the afternoon. Is it tough when you know that Ben, particularly now he's on school holidays, he puts in 2 in the morning and then often 1 at midday. And so by the time you get there, it's almost like you're -3, like you're -3 for that particular day. Is that tough? Is that hard?
It is, I suppose, because it's just like, geez, I wish I was out there as well. But, it's what it is, Yeah. Yeah, so I've got obviously work in Brisbane, and so the afternoons it is. But
but it's also just as hard when you're away working at an event and we have a group chat, and Scotty the night before has gone, hey, who's up for goat loops in the morning, knowing that I'll see it, knowing that I can't get there, and he's like, how many are we doing? 5 or 6. So just as difficult.
That's it.
Definitely. Has from either of you, has there been many highs and lows, particularly in the last couple of months? Can you pinpoint a day when you were just like, this is ridiculous, this is stupid, and the flip side, a day when you just think this is the greatest thing that I've got going on at the moment? Has there been highs and lows?
Oh yeah, I would say definitely the consistency of having to get up and do a couple in the morning every morning. It's not always easy. When I'm there and once I've got out of the car and I've started, it's fine, but it's just set the alarm for whatever time I set it, which is normally like 3:50 or whatever. And it's like, okay, I've got to do it again tomorrow morning, and then I've got to do it the next morning. And you just have to keep doing it. There is no rest days. No, there's no days off.
Yeah.
So it's been for Benny. Yeah. Benny's super disciplined, and he's always punctual. Like this morning, he said, I'll meet you at 5 o'clock. I was there at 5:02. Ben's gone. I was like, yeah, it's all's fair in love and war in the Goat Loop. So
yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
has there been lows in the last couple of months?
For me,
Yeah. Has there been down
Um,
moments? Because it's a
oh,
remote, like, I know we're talking about this in a very sort of casual way, but it is a phenomenal achievement that the two of you are about to, achieve in the next couple of months. It is remarkable, and something which, possibly might not be done for a very long time, if ever again. We're certainly talking, years and years and years away before anyone gets even close. So, there must be some lows in this as well, because it is an ultra, basically what you guys are doing.
yeah. Actually, like even this morning, like I went probably stupidly hard yesterday, and I was really sore all day, and I struggled even to walk around just day to day. And then this morning I got there, and I didn't want to do it. And then I thought, nah, just get going. And as the loops went on, it got better. So yeah, it's a weird one. But some afternoons is like I just don't want to do it, and it's like, nah, just do it. Get it over and done with. Yeah.
Because the thing is, you don't have to. That's the most remarkable thing about this. You literally don't have to. There's no one's forcing you to. It's not a particular set day. There's no bib. There's no entry fee or anything. Like, you don't have to be there. So So what are you doing there? Like, what for the two of you? What is it? Is it because it's a competition at the moment? Is it because people know about it? Is it completely an individual pursuit, and the fact that there's another person going for 1,000 doesn't make any difference?
It's great questions. I think all of those elements that you've just described all come into play.
Yeah,
I've said to Scotty at least 3 or 4 times when we're out there that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing currently if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't be lifting and having to push, because I would have just taken my time to get there. But Scotty has kept me honest times 1,000.
Yeah.
And I think also, yes, people knowing about it does bring an element to it. Sally Teneker, I was chatting to her at Coastal High, and when I started talking about it, because I asked her what she was training for, and then I told her that I was in this race with Scotty, and she said, "Oh no, I'm very aware," and because I don't like to assume that people know about it. But by the end of the conversation, she said, "I'm so invested in this," because she just wanted to know how long I was going to take and where he was up to. And I've met people in Nerang, Stephen, in Nerang car park, same thing. I met him for the first time, introduced myself, and he's very aware of this race that's going on. Or Declan, and Declan was another one. I met Declan out at Foot with Dirt Race at Coomera Wetlands, and he was just there going for a run, and he asked me if I ran, and I said, yeah, I run in Nerang quite a bit. And he goes, have you heard about these 2 guys that are racing to 1,000 goats? Like, I said, yeah, that's me.
I'm one of them.
I'm one of them, one of those crazy idiots. But I think that is definitely an element as well.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Like, I'm the same. I think, like, if Benny, he sort of pushes me, and like he inspires me as well. So it's great. But it's also like almost like a discipline thing as well. Just it's like the grind of doing it, and then also just seeing what you can do. It's unique. Like, you can do a marathon, you can do an ultra stuff, but go and do this 7K loop out in Nerang multiple times each week. It's just something different. Yep.
Yeah. And I think, during that 2020 year, when there were so many races that were being cancelled, it suddenly grew legs of its own, didn't it? And people became very invested in it, and they realized, I've done all this training. Holy hell, I can go out and actually do something, in Nerang that is measurable, that other people kind of know the times and things like that. So I think that 2020 year really sparked the Goat Loop on. We are getting dangerously close to the hour here. In fact, we're coming up to it now. So I'm going to keep this next bit only to a few minutes. But what on earth happens next? There's been a lot of chat about Lazy Lorna, and I know the two of you are pretty adverse or against it.
Not at all.
But well, you are, Betty, because you're the crown holder. You're going to be keeping everyone away from Lazy Lorna.
That's right.
What happens after 1,000 for the two of you?
Well, Scotty said to me the other day, he says it doesn't stop at 1,000. He was very clear. And I don't see myself stopping running the Goat Loop when I hit 1,000.
Yeah.
Because it's just, again, it's my go-to. So I think once I hit the achievement, to celebrate it, and then get up the next day and do it again. But I think I'll then have the luxury of going and doing a few other things if I feel the need or want to.
Yeah.
Because I've been very, as Scotty has been, completely focused on just staying on the loop.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of my other running friends say, "Oh, I don't even bother asking you anymore because I just know you'll say no. You'll just, I don't want to go run the goat loop. I want you to come and do a Mudgeerbar loop with me." And I'm like, nah.
Here's the question, Benny. I want to ask you: are you prepared to let's say that you get to 1,000 first, and Scotty gets there after you? Are you prepared to let the lead go? Let's say he passes you at 1,050, or does it just keep going where you have to stay in front?
We will all see.
We'll see.
Or you
Stay tuned.
You'll decide when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't actually made a decision on that, to be honest. I'm just focused on the goal at task for the hand at the moment.
Scotty, what's your plans after 1,000? Do you think you'll keep doing it, or is it shift to a different goal?
Yeah. No, I'll definitely keep doing loops and stuff, but there's also other little trails in Nerang I want to head out, like the in Loopement, the Goat Royale.
Yeah,
that one really fancy.
Yeah,
but at the moment it's just not on the cards. But something like that. But yeah, we'll just see what happens over the next year or so. In 10 years, 20 years.
This doesn't finish. Any immediate plans that you want to put on the table for the next week, for the next 7 days, that either of you don't know? Because I did say, Benny, I said I think something else is going to happen. It's not just a case of that you're going to do 20 a week, Scott's going to do 20 a week, and you get there 3 weeks, 4 weeks before him.
I told Scotty you said that too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a very gentlemanly agreement, and we're very open and honest about the whole thing for the most part.
I think there's still more to this story yet. Is there anything else that either of you don't know?
Well, Ben probably doesn't know because I didn't tell him, but I'm on holidays for next week, so starting tomorrow.
Bring it on, let's go.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. He's on holidays.
Yeah. Alana's going to be thrilled.
Yes. So good family time.
He's worked. This is long service leave. He's worked for 10 years to take this. So there you go. So Scotty's on holidays. So let's watch the next 7 days eagerly. Benny, anything planned? I mean, you're 47 away. So that's based on this week. That's 2 weeks and 3 days. 2 weeks and 2 days.
Yeah, I said about 2 or 3 weeks ago I wanted it all wrapped up by the weekend of Blackall, so that's 3 weekends away. So I'm hoping to get it done by then.
Yeah. So that means it's likely a midweek one. I mean, you could do. Oh, I'm saying you could do. It's 23 weeks, 23 loops 1 week, 24 loops the next, and that's done. But that'd be a massive ask, wouldn't it? It's not impossible. It's a massive ask, but it could be a midweek 1,000. So,
that's what I'm aiming for at this point.
Yeah. Everyone who's listening need to call in your day in lieu that you've got Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. Let's watch it carefully as it happens.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you very much. That is an hour and 4 we're up to now. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts on the Goat Loop. As I said, I think I can speak for everyone who listens to the Racing News podcast, and from Kyle and myself, we are gobsmacked, absolutely blown away by what you've achieved. I'm at number 220, which seems just like a huge number, but then when you look at it in comparison to what you guys have done, it is remarkable, and something which I think when you're living it in the moment, you realize it's big, but I don't think people realize how big this actually is. And maybe the longer it goes before someone else does it again, we won't really come to respect it as much as we should do. And it's when the story of the Goat Loop is told in the years to come, it'll go down in absolute folklore. Behind me here, I don't know if you can see it. These are Brad Ed keeps asking me about my notebooks. These are actually some of the Racing News podcast notebooks. And I was thinking today, maybe when we're all finished and done with this, we'll bury those somewhere under a log, and then in 100 years' time, when they dig them up, they'll be like, "What is this all about? Who's this Ben Dean and Scott George we're talking about?"
In the rain,
But look, guys, whatever happens in the next 3 or 4 weeks, congratulations, all the best for it. We are in awe. And the respect that I think everyone has for you who's done the Goat Loop is massive, and we can't wait to see what actually happens. And I guess for those of us who see you regularly, we've got to think about what on earth we do for the 1,000th. We did actually think there was a discussion. Actually, I don't know if you saw the footage from UTMB when Courtney Dauwalter ascended one of the mountains, and the French, or the Italians, or the Swiss, they just had the flares out and the cowbells. It was like the Tour de France climb. So maybe we'll find some way of doing it. So all the best, guys. Thank you very much for your time, and to everyone who's joined us at home.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
To everyone who's joined us at home, we really appreciate it. We're going to load this podcast up like we normally do as well, so you can have another listen if you'd like to. But brilliant, guys.
Awesome.
We'll see you out on the Goat Loop. Cheers.
See you.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.